Hello everyone, this is Robert Marujo, the editor-in-chief of Nintendojo, and we're here to review Donkey Kong Bananza for Nintendo Switch 2. It's our first video review, so wish us luck. Donkey Kong Bananza is the first 3D Donkey Kong game since Donkey Kong 64 back in 1999. That's about 1,000 years ago? Actually 26 years since the big gorilla has graced fans with a non-2D adventure. And for his return to the third dimension, he's brought the Nintendo Entertainment and Planning Division along for the ride. If the EPD sounds familiar, that's because it's the team behind Super Mario Odyssey. It was a rumor from the outset that the Odyssey team was working on Bananza, thanks in no small part to the games having some strikingly similar aesthetics and world structure. While the DNA Bananza shares with Odyssey is unmistakable, Bananza does plenty to carve out its own identity thanks to the game's core mechanic: complete and utter destruction. Still, while there's no denying the appeal of cutting loose and demolishing everything in sight, Bananza is also rife with unique gameplay ideas, clever puzzles, a killer soundtrack, gorgeous visuals, and buckets of charm. So, Bananza starts players off on Ingot Isle, where DK is mining away trying to get his hands on the newly discovered golden bananas found there. These Banandium gems have unfortunately drawn the attention of others as well, specifically the evil Void Corporation and its leader Void Kong. DK finds himself sucked deep below the planet's surface, exploring new layers in a bid to reach the core and find his freedom. He can't do it alone though, and that's where the game's partner Pauline enters the mix. With her singing abilities, she can power up DK, helping him access new Bananza powers that grant the hero different abilities and skills. Pauline also seeks freedom from the world below, but has a mysterious connection to Void King that unfolds as the story progresses. So look, is it Shakespeare? No. But it's a good enough setup to position our characters and get them to smashing. The introductory level sets the stage perfectly for players, delving into DK's basic punches and jumping abilities, while also giving a taste for what it's like to dig into the terrain. Introduced in Odyssey's Luncheon Kingdom, the world's destructible cheese rocks are the basis of Bananza's voxel technology. Players can smash, punch, fling, and demolish nearly every bit of the terrain throughout the adventure. Initially, the sense of power at DK, and thus the player's, disposal is intoxicating. I spent a good long time in the opening act burrowing through every bit of rock that I could. Admittedly, I found myself feeling claustrophobic at first, as players can legitimately burrow into the unknown without the game ever stopping them. The camera system does a good job, though, of helping to keep the player aware of where they are with a clever use of silhouettes. What's more, while the game world is highly destructible, in every stage there's a skeleton, so to speak, or kind of frame, that exists at the core of every world that you're in, every stage, that holds everything together. After getting acclimated to how things work, I realized that while the temptation to keep smashing is and always will be there throughout Bananza, in reality, being able to break through everything around DK is meant to be a tool for exploration more than anything else. And players will want to explore Bananza's numerous layers and sublayers. Don't let the fact that DK and Pauline are burrowing underground make you think that you're in store for a world of darkness and shadows. Ingot Isle's subterranean underside defies logic, presenting players with blizzards and jungles and beaches and bright, gleaming skies overhead. It's zany in the best way, never wasting any time to justify why the different layers are how they are. Bananza often took me straight back to the glory days of the 3D platformer on Nintendo 64, where the act of exploring in and of itself was rewarding. I didn't need then to know why Banjo and Kazooie were attending music classes inside the shell of a giant turtle, and I was similarly uncurious why large exploding cubes of fruit lined the sands of the resort layer in Bananza. The team at Nintendo EPD were clearly laser focused on fun over the why of everything, and when done right, that will often lead to the very best of video game experiences. As any 3D platforming veteran knows, collectibles and quests are at the heart of these games, and Bananza is no different. DK can collect Banandium gems, yes, but he also gathers Banandium chips and gold, which can be exchanged for Banandium gems, as well as fossils, which DK can buy gear with. The Banandium gems reward a skill point after every 5th banana collected, and those points can then be used to power up DK via a skill tree. Increases punching power, or maximize the length of time that DK can access his various Bananza powers. The choice is yours. The gear that DK and Pauline can wear is also up to the whims of the player, with a number of different fur colors, ties, and trousers available for DK, and one-piece ensembles for Pauline. They're not just for show, as the different bits of kit can also alter player stats, but I also honestly rarely paid attention to what they could do, and was more enamored with playing dress-up with the two characters. Old-school Donkey Kong Country fans might appreciate that you can even make DK look like his Player 2 color palette throughout the adventure, if they want. Speaking of Donkey Kong Country, Bananza does a solid job of mixing in elements of those games that have become synonymous with the brand. Blast barrels are a primary method of transport throughout the adventure, and some segments of gameplay borrow familiar tunes, or incorporate things like minecart rides into the proceedings. Bananza is never too reverential to the past, instead slipping in just enough references to satisfy longtime players. And while I'm a sucker for the classic tunes of David Wise, Bananza's score is very memorable. There are hints of Splatoon in some of the chords, and the variety of tunes was impressive. Nintendo seems to be keenly aware that fans will want to listen to all of the music in Bananza, as there's even an option to listen to music via an in-game music player. There are 110 tracks to collect, which are scattered around the game world as records, yet another collectible. We should probably start delving into what Bananza doesn't do well, but there isn't much. The game has rock solid, no pun intended, performance, locking in at 60 frames per second virtually every step of the way. However, there were some occasions when the action could get extra intense, and Bananza would stutter. But these moments were far and few between, and never so intrusive as to be noticeable. It is possible to tear up the terrain to the point that some areas start to become inaccessible, but two things on that point. One, a little restraint goes a long way, and two, the game gives you the option to reset the terrain as needed, so you're never really truly stuck. There's a 2-player mode here, but it honestly felt unnecessary. You didn't really gain too much from it. Banana is a single-player adventure through and through, and while a second player can jump in and control Pauline while tethered to DK, you're not missing much if you never have a friend join you. The same can be said for DK Artist. It's a fun mode that makes good use of the Joy-Con 2 mouse controls, and if you're artistically inclined, you can actually whip up some cool creations. However, if Nintendo really wanted to add some meat to the bones of DK Artist, there should have been an option to export STL files for 3D prints of player creations. Regardless, it's a fun mode for what it is. The big gorilla in the room is undoubtedly going to be fans wondering if Bananza is equal to or even superior to Odyssey. I'll be frank, I loved Odyssey, but I don't know that I hold it in as high of regard as some others do. It had standout moments that I continue to remember fondly, but part of me is leaning towards Bananza being at least equal, if not slightly superior to Odyssey. The sheer might of DK is exhilarating. His different Bananza powers are not only visually striking, but they also mix up his power set, with one in particular that will be very appealing to players who want to push the limits of the game's voxel technology. I also found myself just standing around basking at the beauty of Bananza's layers. There's also a surprise waiting for longtime fans that will really get them grinning ear to ear, so it's hard to say, but if nothing else, Bananza is a must for Nintendo Switch 2 owners. It's a premier platformer that will grip you from the outset and keep you glued to the screen until the credits roll. Nintendojo gives this one an A-. If you enjoyed this review, Please give us a like and a follow, and find us online and on social media. And until next time, thanks for watching, everybody.